Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the webinar, Making Use of the Federal Bonding Program with Veterans and HVRP. Thank you for joining us. My name is Maddie Goldstein. I'm the Program Assistant at the National Coalition for Homeless Veterans. And together with our partners from Advocates for Human Potential, we make up the National Veterans Technical Assistance Center. Before we get underway with the webinar, I'd like to go over a few logistics. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to you for access about 24 hours after it's over. You can communicate with me if you're having any technical difficulties through the chat box or my email, which you can find on all the registration confirmation emails. All participant lines are muted, so you'll be unable to ask questions over the phone. On the GoToWebinar dashboard, there's a tab that says Questions, where you can enter your questions. We will leave time at the end for Q&A, so please do participate. We also have two handouts for you to access, also on the dashboard. If you go to the Handouts tab, you can download those there. After the webinar, you will receive an email with a link to the recording, the slides, and the post-webinar survey. The post-webinar survey will also pop up immediately at the end of the webinar today, and we would appreciate it if you took just a moment to complete that survey to help inform us, and we can continue to bring voices and information relevant to your work with veterans. We have a great program here today, and I'm going to transfer over to John Rio with Advocates for Human Potential to be your facilitator. John?
Thank you, Maddie. Appreciate the introduction, and thank you for being with us this afternoon. For the next hour, we're going to be talking about the federal bonding program and how it can help homeless veterans in your projects across the country. As you may know, the bonding program is a national resource that's made available through the U.S. Department of Labor, and they have a partnership with the Union Insurance Group, who is also connected to Travelers, which is the insurance company that's providing the bond. This idea of the federal bond is to provide employers a job hire incentive, if you will, that guarantees the job honesty of at-risk job seekers. The veterans in our program may have a variety of demographics that fit the eligibility for the bonding program. In particular, the bonding program is commonly and used in large measure by justice-involved job applicants, those who have a background or those who have been involved with the criminal justice system and who are presenting to an employer for competitive employment. We're going to talk a little bit about the bond program, and we're going to talk a bit about the experiences that we've seen people have, and we're also fortunate that we're going to get a little snapshot of what the experience has been in Florida. In that state. But before we actually, well, let me introduce, we have some great speakers. You have a slide up there that is telling you who our speakers are today. We have, and are fortunate to have, Tom Villanova, who's a lifelong Chicago resident, who is actually quite chilly today. Wouldn't be surprised if before the night's over they're down to 0 degrees in Chicago. Tom serves as president of the Chicago and Cook County Building and Construction Trades Council, and in April of this year he became the program manager for the federal bonding program at the Union Insurance Group. He was an electrical apprentice at Local 134 IBEW and worked as a steward, foreman, and a general foreman. He eventually became a full-time instructor at this local. He earned his bachelor's degree in law studies from the Antioch University in 1998, and he has been appointed to numerous council and boards in the Chicagoland area. We also have Nikki Brown, who is on the other spectrum of the weather, coming to us from Florida. Nikki works with the Florida Department of Economic Opportunities Workforce Services Division, and she's the state coordinator for the federal bonding program. She also manages Florida's Displaced Homemakers Program and the job-driven National Emergency Grant there. Nikki is a well-known speaker throughout the workforce development social service communities in her state, and her topics include employer incentives for job seekers with barriers, internal and external customer service, and a host of other workforce and contemporary social issues. She holds a bachelor's degree of science in psychology and a master's of science degree in community psychology. And she's still not done with school. She's working on her doctorate in business administration. So we have some talented presenters for you today. But before we get started, we have, Maddie, can you help me out? We're going to do this poll. We want to ask you all whether or not you've ever used the federal bonding program. Maddie, can you guide people through this?
Sure. A poll probably just popped up on your dashboard. Just yes, no, not sure. Let us know.
So if you check your answer, it'll tabulate shortly, and we'll be able to get some sense of our audience's experience with the federal bond program.
We're about 3/4 of the way. 3/4 of our webinar attendees have voted. More coming in. So far it's looking like most are no. 81% of you all have not used the federal bonding program. 12% not sure. Oh, changing a little. Still about the same. Most people are saying no.
Okay, well, I thank you for taking that quick little poll for us, and it helps our speakers better understand where you might be coming from on this. So I'm going to turn this over to Tom, who's going to use the federal bond website. We're going to bring that up now, Maddie, and Tom is going to give you an overview of the federal bond program. Tom?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, John, and thank you, Maddie, for setting everything up, and hopefully we can be successful here in getting some people to work that are in need of jobs. The federal bonding program actually started about 50 years ago, and I think it's, and by Maddie's poll, you can tell it's a well-kept secret, and we're trying to change that dynamic in the whole program by working together. By way of history, Union Insurance Group inherited this program about 6 months ago, and we've been working trying to update everything and trying to get things going to make the program more successful. The program is a unique placement tool to help at-risk job seekers become employed. It's sponsored through the United States Department of Labor. There is a whole department at the USDOL that handles the federal bonding program, and we have a contract at Union Insurance Group with USDOL, and the bonds are provided by Travelers Insurance. The federal bonding program is an employer job hire incentive. It's one of the things with employers, they fear employee dishonesty, so there's insurance called a fidelity bond to utilize this, where they don't have any programs like this anywhere else. It's a unique job placement tool. The people that are not bondable, usually ex-offenders, people with bad credit ratings, bankruptcies, are usually not bondable. So this takes that risk away for the employer. And the employer benefits by this because they get job skills. When we talk about the military, no matter what your MOS was or whatever you were in and trained in, you've got job skills. And this takes that away and gives the employer a trained worker. So who's eligible? At-risk job seekers are eligible, and any employees seeking advancement or maintaining employment are eligible. Really, the only ones that aren't eligible are people that are self-employed. That's one of the only stipulations in the program, that you cannot be self-employed and be bonded by this with the fidelity bond. Who are the at-risk and not bondable people? It's usually ex-offenders, recovering substance abusers, individuals with poor credits or bankruptcies in their history, people with little or no work history, ex-military with honorable, dishonorable discharges, or homeless, and any other people with barriers that would eliminate a job because they couldn't get a fidelity bond. The program's been very successful. We've had 45,000 job placements, and once we get started with somebody, there's a 99% success rate on the person getting hired. What Union Insurance Group has done is we've improved the service delivery, the efficiency, and the effectiveness of the program to make it easier on everybody, including the employers. The agencies that can acquire the bonds are just about everybody. There's state and local government agencies, non-government agencies, and private employers and private groups can purchase the bonds. You can go through the local workforce centers and one-stop career centers to find out about the bonds, or coordinate with your state and local agencies that already have bonds. On our website, bonds, the number 4 jobs, all the state coordinators and all their contact information is listed on the website now. There's no paperwork for the employers to sign or submit. One of the big things with the employers also, it's 100% insurance. There is no deductible. Normally when an employer gets a fidelity bond, there's a deductible attached to that. It's usually a pretty high deductible with somebody that's at risk, but there is no deductible with this. There's a minimal amount of paperwork, and there's no follow-up or termination action needed. These bonds, the first bond is good for the first 6 months, is free. The second 6 months, it's renewable for free. And then after that, after a year, they go into the normal bond market as a normal employee. So we've reworked the website. We're still reworking the website, trying to get everything, and it's a work in progress. One of the things we're shooting for next, and we should have it up right after the first of the year, is you're going to be able to apply for the bond and do everything online. There will be no paperwork for anybody involved at all. So that's what we're looking at, and that's what we're very happy with the progress we've made, and we're very happy to work with everybody involved. Thank you.
All right, Tom, that's a good introduction for everyone. It is worthwhile going to the Federal Bond website where you can gather some more detailed information. You can also find out who your bond coordinator is in your state. There is, in fact, a list with each person's name and contact information for all of the states. If for some reason that you don't see a contact person for your state, or if you tried to reach that person and are not successful, there is a federal staff person who is working with the bond program based in Washington, D.C. We believe he's back on the job, Derek Williams at DOL in headquarters. If all else fails, give Derek a ring. His number is 202-693-3931. And we'll write that out again in the chat box, but it's Derek Williams, 202-693-3931. So that's if all else fails. Don't pick up the phone and try to find out the weather in Washington, D.C. by calling Derek or just chit-chatting. He's a busy guy, and please, if you're just having trouble in your state, reach out for some assistance from the national coordinator. So, Maddie, do I have control, or are you going to switch the slides for me?
I can switch control over to you.
It doesn't matter. You can switch them. It's fine. All right, there we go. I just wanted to let people know that, as Tom mentioned, the bond program has been around since 1966, and there's been a fair number of users. That 50,000 represents about 1,000 people per year who are making use of the bond across the country. It sounds like a fair number, but there are a lot more potential beneficiaries of the program than are using it. We found in Florida has the highest use of the bond program, 300, I think it's actually over 350 users in that state. But then we don't see another state with a high utilization. The next highest state has only 55 users. We also know that those numbers don't count some of the grantees that ETA has that can use funds to purchase bonds as well. And from what we know in terms of the statistics on this, that nearly 1,000 people were bonded in the 7/1/14 to June 30th 15 period. So there's, I think this sort of reflects our experience. Next slide. I want to just tell you all that NCHV and I, actually Cindy and I, Cindy Borden at NCHV, my colleague and co-director for the NVTAC, we did a little survey last year to try to find out about how well the bond was being used. It was in light of the bond achieving its 50th anniversary. I believe that was last April, if I'm not mistaken. But we did a sort of a convenient sample of about 10 HVRPs around the country, and lo and behold, we found that about 70% have heard about it or knows that the federal bonding program exists, but the utilization of it was very low. That only one of our HVRPs in our little sample had experience in helping a veteran use the bond, but none of our HVRPs had experience in actually using it in the last 12 months. So there's, I guess there's some understandable reasons for that, and let's get into that. A lot of our HVRPs are finding jobs for formerly incarcerated veterans in these occupations, these industries in particular. Now, these are not the only industries, but these account for a fair number of homeless veterans that have justice involvement that are going into the labor market. We see a lot entering the construction, food service, maintenance, and sanitation sectors. And in those sectors, there's often not a lot of concern around theft, and because there's not a lot of costly items that are around. However, one of the things that we've learned in making job placements in these sectors is that the wage rates for these sectors are not the highest wage jobs, and that we know that the better the connection the veteran, the justice-involved veteran has with their job, they're likely to reduce their chances of recidivism, and a good paying job is one that certainly ensures more loyalty to the employer than does a low-paying one. Next slide. So when we were looking at our experiences with the HVRPs and using the bond, there were a number of issues that came up. And I just want to acknowledge these because I think if we're trying to not only make use of the bond, but make use of the bond in order to have more of our veteran job seekers get higher quality jobs, we need to deal with some of these challenges and myths that seem to still be out there. So the catch-22 situation, some job developers kind of feel that or experience that, a justice-involved veteran can't get the job until employer is assured that they're going to get the bond, and they can't get the bond until they have a bona fide job offer. So that's the catch-22, is that in order for a bond to be provided to an employer for a particular veteran, there has to be a bona fide job offer and a start date for that candidate. So there's a little bit of a catch-22 situation, but one of the things that can mitigate that is if we are talking with our local AJC bond person and explore the potential for issuing a bond in a short turnaround period, we can mitigate that catch-22 if that bond can be made available within 72 hours, let's say. So there's, for each of these challenges, like the second one, not knowing how much time it takes to get the bond, or believing that it takes weeks before a bond gets issued, that simply should not be the case. Some of our HVRPs were experiencing something a little different. Their orientation to helping justice-involved veterans get jobs is to find felon-friendly employers, or employers who are less likely to be concerned about the background, and you won't, with the belief that you can avoid disclosure if you have a felon-friendly employer. You can avoid that disclosure, and that is a preference on a part of some of our job developers. Sometimes people felt that telling an employer about a bond may be taken by the employer, that the employer is at greater risk of theft or loss by hiring our justice-involved veteran. In a way, the bond fosters the stigma that justice-involved veterans are likely to be more dishonest workers, which we know is simply not true. But we are oftentimes dealing with both facts and attitudes in the hiring processes. So we often have to try to figure out ways to mitigate that kind of attitude that employers may have about our job seekers. Some job developers still think that it's very difficult to secure a bond, and there's a lot of paperwork that you got to have. There's 5 pages of papers that you have to fill out in order to secure a bond, and it's just too much effort, and they would rather not bother. Well, that is myth. There isn't a lot of paperwork. As NIKKI will tell you, and how it works in Florida, there's virtually one piece of paper that gets completed to certify a person eligible for the bond. And some of our job developers just think that it takes a long time to get the bond. And that is also a myth. It does not have to be. Now, there may be mitigating issues or challenges that the person at the job center that you're trying to work with is out on vacation, or the bond coordinator is not readily available. But given all things being equal, the process for issuing a bond is pretty quick. Next slide. We can also think about in our HVRP programs, and this is my perspective at this point, where there's not been a lot of use of the bond in HVRPs. Perhaps it may do us well to take a look at who might be a person or an employer who might benefit most from the bond, or in our work to help that job seeker get the employment they desire, who might best use the bond. So from looking at employers, if we're doing job development, and we might consider use of a bond with larger companies in jobs that have less customer contact, and not so much for the construction jobs per se, but for more middle skill jobs, including office occupations. That might be an employer for whom a bond might help their confidence and comfort level to make a hire. And jobs with higher wages, making a bond part of the pitch to the employer might be a sufficient incentive to help that employer see their way to hiring somebody at higher wages. There's not been a lot of research about whether job seeker or employer profiles tell us anything about who will use the bond or not use the bond. There's just clearly, we know that from all the work that our grantees have been doing, that helping an employer hire a justice-involved veteran, a veteran with a felony, is a significant challenge. And the opportunity to access a bond to ensure that employer against a loss could just help convince that employer that it's a good idea to hire this person with the right skill sets and experience and presentation to be able to do the job, of course. But that lingering doubt may go away when that employer is satisfied that their risk has been minimized. Next slide. So, so who in our group of participants might be a good candidate for the bond? Well, of course, probably nearly every job-seeking veteran in HVRP is a candidate for it, not just our justice-involved veterans. But if we are to try to make good use of the bond, and it certainly should be a consideration for candidates who have these kinds of features. These are the kinds of features or characteristics that an employer is more reluctant to hire. Employers will shy away from applicants who have committed crimes against other people, or who have longer criminal records, or low education, or don't have the right or enough work history, and who may be have a minority status. So when we have job seekers with this profile, it may be helpful to make sure that the bond is a consideration in developing the relationship with the employer. So I'm trying to just give our grantees some thoughts and ideas around making use of the bond as a tool in the employer engagement process. And I think we're going to take a little closer look with NIKKI Brown, who is, as I said, our coordinator down in Florida, And I'm going to turn it over to her to make some remarks about her experiences in her state. Nikki?
Okay. Hi, everyone. First of all, we are excited to have been given the invite to participate on this webinar. We're very proud of our program here in Florida. And yes, we so far are we have the #1 performing program. And like it was mentioned earlier in the call, we process anywhere from 3 to 350 bonds a year. Just to kind of give you an overview of how we have our bonding program set up around the state. I work for the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, and I know in some states that's their State Department of Labor. That used to be our old name, and then we went to the Agency for Workforce Innovation, so we've been rebranded a couple of times. And so the program is led from the state level, but we have career centers, and they're also called American Job Centers around the state. And we have over 105. We have 105 career centers, also called One Stop. So they have, the names are interchangeable. But we have over 100 of those career centers around the state, and our goal is to have a bonding specialist in each of our career centers. So we're about 75% of the way there in making sure that each career center has a bonding specialist, but we've been very successful in, getting our career centers on board with, designating someone there to be a bonding specialist and to be the on-site specialist in the bonding process. The reason that is such a vital component of our program is because, job seekers need to be able to go to their closest one-stop, should be able to go to their closest one-stop and, ask questions about the bonding program, to turn in their job offer letters, to get assistance in being prepared for the interview. So just let me back up a little bit and just kind of talk about our program marketing, because that's a big part of that's a big component in like the success of our program. We market our program to organizations that work with populations that could benefit from the program, and so we've created just this real special network that exists between nonprofit organizations, our one-stop network, and within that one-stop network, our business consultants and our bonding specialists, as well as other state agencies like our Department of Corrections, our Department of Juvenile Justice, and Department of Children and Families. So a lot of our state agencies, talk about our program to their partners. So we really tried to market our program from the state level so that it can reach the local level. Once the job seeker, so I'll go through our steps. The first step for a job seeker is to visit our local career center. We try to steer all the job seekers to our career center first, because we don't know how employable they are initially. Some job seekers are, ready to start job searching. Some are not. Some may need assistance with their resume. Some may need assistance with their interviewing skills. So we like to direct them first to our career center so that they can be, so that an assessment can be done, and we can just kind of gauge how employable the job seeker is from that angle. Once they get to the career center, they're registered in our Employ Florida Marketplace database, and that is the labor exchange system that we use, that employers use to list their jobs and to match up with job seekers. So the job seekers provided employability skills or job search assistance or both. So the employability skills piece is consistent of all of the workshops that we offer, resume writing, interviewing skills. We do mock interviewing. We do how to fill out an application, how to dress for success. So we have a number of different employability workshops. Job search assistance, that's just pretty self-explanatory. We have resource room attendants that work with the job seekers to see what kind of assistance they need in in finding a job. And our assessments, do job seekers know what their skills are, what their interests are. So that's a really big piece for any job seekers is, making sure that you're job searching based on who you are, and not just kind of out there searching blindly, as well as providing them labor market information. I know that, this feels kind of real workforce heavy, but that's just a real big piece, making sure that you understand what the needs are for employers that are in your area or in the area that you're interested in working in, especially for job seekers who've been absent from the workforce. That information, they may not be familiar with, who the employers are in their area and just what their needs are. So once the job seeker starts interviewing, with employers, then we kind of hand them off from there until a job offer is made, and hopefully, that they'll be successful in having a job offer made. Once they have that job offer letter, they return to our career center, and from there, the bonding specialist processes the job offer letter. It's sent to me here on the state level, and I do all the final check and dot the I's, I cross the T's, and then I send it on to Union. And you heard the presentation earlier from Tom. So that's our process here in Florida. And like I said, we start off by directing our job seekers to the Career Center so that we can gauge their employability level. And from there, they begin their job search, which hopefully ends in them being offered a job, and then they provide that job offer letter to the bonding specialist in our local career center, and then it comes back up to the state level. And just like John mentioned earlier, there's very little paperwork. The only thing that we need from the employer is the job offer letter. We ask that the job offer letter contain the job seeker's, start date, hire date, pay rate, and that information is included in our EFM database. But that's pretty much it for the employer. I get contacted a lot I receive calls a lot from employers asking about the program. I mentioned earlier in my spiel about our business consultants that work with the bonding specialists in our local one-stop career centers. They do a great job of canvassing their local areas, and they talk about the different workforce programs and employer incentive programs which bonding would fall under. And so a lot of employers throughout our state are already familiar with the bonding program, but in the event that they are not familiar with the bonding program, that's where the bonding specialists and the program staff that work with our partner organizations, that's where everybody comes together to assist the job seeker in confidence building and in knowing the logistics, the ins and outs of the program so that they can confidently explain the program to the employer during the interviewing piece. Because that part is pretty scary for the job seeker. They don't know, they had, some of the questions we get, they don't really know when to bring up the bonding program in an interview. So that's kind of where they can get coaching from their case managers or the program staff that they're working with via whatever program they're interacting with. So one of the things that we definitely do here in Florida, we try to encourage job seekers to not lead with their barriers, but to lead with their strengths. And basically what that means is that, you're so much more than, an ex-offender. You're so much more than a person with a substance abuse history. We really want we practice confidence building, and we really want them to understand that, that they need to present themselves to the employer as the best candidate for the job. And that's really our, just kind of our mode of operating here in Florida, to assist our job seekers in, being confident in how they interview so that they can get that job offer, because, that's the first step in becoming bonded, is actually being given a job offer. So we definitely stress that part pretty heavily. Our program is twofold. We have our employer audience as well as the job seeker audience. So, we vary up our delivery method and how we present the program depending on who our audience is. But that's pretty much the gist of what we do here in Florida. I know that program marketing has been a big piece. Having our bonding specialists located throughout the state has been a big piece, because our job seekers aren't just dependent on me to tell them about the program. They can go to any of their local career centers. And like I said, another big piece is being able to do that do the employability training up front so that they can be more successful in actually obtaining that job offer. And that, unless there's any questions, that's my spiel. John?
Yeah, Nikki, can you elaborate a little bit more about how do employers experience the job applicant with a bond? Do you hear much from the employers around their point of view and what they have to say about the bond?
A lot, kind of piggybacking off of what Tom said earlier, is the bonding program, even with all the marketing that we do, it's still such a big secret and such a big surprise to employers when they find out about it. So a lot of them are in shock when they hear about the bonding program, and I get calls from employers, and they're just, they can't believe the program exists. They can't believe that the program has existed as long as it's existed. And then the icing on the cake is, for it to be as good of an incentive as it is, and to not have, just this humongous stack of state paperwork, that's just that just makes it all the more appealing. So the experience that employers have had with the program since I've been coordinating the program is that, it's been a good experience for them. They haven't had any I haven't experienced an employer filing a claim thus far, and so it's a very successful program, and they can also remain engaged with our career centers, because it's not just like we hand them off to the employer. We're also there to assist them in being successful on the job. So the job seekers can still interact with our career centers even after becoming employed. So I think that we've formed a great network here in Florida.
So Nikki, I'm gathering the takeaway for either a veteran who's a job applicant or a person, a staff member in one of our HVRPs who develops jobs or has contact with employers. There's three key messages to get across to the employer around the bond program. I guess first and foremost that you're pitching, you don't have to worry about hiring me. Let's just, you may be concerned that because I have a background that I might be dishonest, or that something might occur in your workplace. So you don't have to worry about that because I can be insured. You can be insured, rather. You, the employer, can be insured against any loss.
Right. I mean,
so that's one message.
Right, that's the core of the program, that the whole bonding piece is hopefully going to alleviate that concern for employers.
And then the icing on the cake is it's free.
It's free. It's absolutely free.
And
no deductible.
No deductible. and there's really no extra paperwork.
Very little, like, whatever it takes for you to print out a job offer letter.
Just a hire letter, that's it.
Right.
Which is a good thing that employers should do anyway, is just convey that they're hiring at a certain wage and a certain start date. So that's just a good employer practice. So it's a win-win-win for the employer.
Absolutely.
Well, good. Those are good takeaways, and I just want our audience to know if there are any questions that you have as we're wrapping up our webinar today. Please give us your questions by typing them in the question box, which is on your screen. Maddie, could you also tell our audience about the handouts that we have on how to get those?
Sure. The handout should be downloadable just through the webinar platform that was pulled up. There's two under the tab Fidelity Bonding Program Q&A, News to Use Federal Bonding. If not, you're having difficulties, of course, email me and I will happily send them as attachments.
Thanks, Maddie. And those are just two pieces that you can use that might help educate your fellow staff members in your program, or you may choose to make copies available for the veterans who are enrolled in your program. Remember, we're all concerned that veterans make an informed choice about using the bond program in their job search and job application process, that they should know that this tool is available to them. Certainly it is at their discretion whether to make use of it or not. But our best customers are informed customers, so we want to make sure that we can educate our veterans about the federal bonding program. There are definitely things that our HVRP staff can be doing that is likely to help increase your job offers, especially with veterans with challenges and those who are justice involved. So making it part of your employer engagement process, which I hope all of our HVRPs are doing, are reaching out to employers and trying to connect with them about your labor pool that you have, and that you can let them know that there is an insurance program that they should know about if they are hiring anybody who they might have concerns around. Tom, are you going to be developing more promotional materials for the bond program?
Absolutely. We're in the midst right now of getting brochures printed up. They're going to reflect a lot of the information on the website. Obviously, we can't put the state coordinators on the brochures because they change, as NIKKI well knows, and they'd have to be constantly updated. But we're working on that right now. And another thing, too, that I had mentioned with the forms, it's one short form, as NIKKI said. We're trying to get it on the internet, but the problem that we're running into now is there's different state laws for every state with Social Security numbers and how you put them on the web, how you put them on the internet and everything. So we're going to have to figure out our way through that before we can eventually just have everything available on the internet.
Okay. Well, and if anyone in our audience is looking for these materials, or you can't find them, or you want to get them when they're coming out from Tom and his colleagues at the Union Insurance Group, please write to your regional liaison. If you're in the San Francisco, Philadelphia, or Atlanta regions, that's Cindy. Let her know that you're looking for that information. If you're in the Dallas region, reach out to Ian Listman. His phone number and email is now on your screen. Tell him, hey Ian, I want that latest brochure about the bonding program. If you're in Chicago, Pat Tucker's your person to get in touch with. She can help you secure that. And if you're in the Northeast, in the Boston area, Boston region, Nicole is your liaison to the NVTAC, and you can reach her at that email or phone numbers. Tell her you're interested in the bond program, or she can help walk you through it if you have concerns. But anything that we can do to help you use the bond to be effective with your veterans, we want to help you get through that.
John, we had an audience question come in, and it's about, I guess, who is usually in charge of the program. The question is, at the AJC, is it typically the DVOP or the LEVR who is responsible for the program? Is it another person at the agency? And how, as an employment specialist with HVRP, does this person help with the process? So who's responsible for it, and then what role does the HVRP staff, employment specialist, play in it?
A good question, and all of our HVRPs, and I'm sure all of you, have a relationship with your American Job Center. I know you do have a relationship with your DVOP. Some of you may even have your DVOP show up at HVRP. So I would have a conversation with the DVOP to see if they could tell you who the person is in their AJC that is familiar with the bond program and who is the contact. In most instances, it will not be the DVOP themselves. This is not a veteran-specific program. It's a job seeker program intended for anyone with barriers who wants to use the bond. So it's oftentimes another staff member at the AJC. Ask the DVOP, do you know who at your AJC is the bond coordinator or liaison? Hopefully your HVRP staff are familiar enough or have been to the American Job Center, and when you are there or the next time you're there, is ask at the front desk who is the federal bond person at this AJC. And if you get the I don't know, would suggest that the next level of person to make contact with is your state bond coordinator, your NIKKI Brown in your state. Do you get calls like that, Nikki? Calls like, who is my local AJC liaison for the bond?
No, I haven't. Well, I guess, yes, for our bonding specialist, I definitely, you know, I've been contacted by job seekers, and they, you know, I have to direct them to their local career center, and they'll ask who the bonding specialist is in that center. But we, you know, in addition to our bonding specialist, you know, it's our practice that, you know, any of our staff can assist in the bonding process, but we just try to make sure that there's someone designated for the actual bonding program.
And you call them bonding specialists in your workforce system?
Yes.
So in other states, they may be called a bond coordinator or a bond staff, or maybe by another name.
Yeah, or they may not exist at all. Some states may just have the state bond coordinator on the state level, and they may not have it broken out the way we do around the state.
Okay. So the key is the bonding coordinator list, and that's on the website, Tom, is that right?
Yes. You can link from the website to each one, and all of their contact information is on there.
So, and if anybody who is in our webinar today, and if you have a problem with getting to the right person or talking to someone, let your NVTAC staff member know. Okay, we're here to try to help make those bridges, help build your community partnerships. So if we can be of assistance, please reach out to Cindy, Ian, Pat, or Nicole for some assistance. All right, like I said, we're here to help you succeed.
With about 5 minutes left, we have one more question. It's going back to the Catch-22 question. When trying to get the employer to hire, how can you preempt them or let them know that the client will get the bond until there's the offer? They don't know that. What can you do to pre-prepare? Because you can't say you'll get the bond. So any suggestions on how to kind of bridge that time?
Good question, Maddie. Tom, do you want to take a crack at that one?
I think NIKKI has practical experience in it, but I think NIKKI had mentioned too, a letter of employment is a big thing here. If you get a letter of employment, I don't know anybody that's been denied a bond. So right. I think we got, you know, it is a catch-22 to some people, but if you get that promise of employment letter, then you're going to get the bond. And I think a relationship with employers, NIKKI mentioned this before, that's where a lot of this lies too, is a relationship with employers that have used the program before. They know how good the program works. They know how easy it is to get the bond.
That kind of leads nice into probably one of the last questions we'll have time for. Someone in the audience is saying that this sounds like a great program, but they're wondering what employers are going to hire under this program.
It varies. I mean, everything is just so case by case, depending on, you know, who the employees are in your area. I mean, it's just so case by case. Like we don't give out like a list of employers from the state level, but our career centers that are more familiar with their local employers, and like Tom said, they may have that a better relationship with those employers. They may have already, you know, discussed providing that information out locally. You know, they may be adopted to be able to go to the career center and find out exactly which employers in that area are, you know, bond friendly or, you know, felon friendly. So that's not something we give out from the state level, but some of our career centers and the business consultants may have those relationships where they could offer that information locally.
But
I don't think that there's any parameters around any of this, because we've witnessed all kinds of different industries. There's construction, but not only that, there's hotel workers. We had one with a lot of car dealerships seem to be doing this. We had one with an accountant that had some problems in the past, and he's the accountant at a car dealership right now, and got the bond through that. Another one too in Florida that I had never thought of before was there was an ambulance company in Florida that uses this program a lot to get the drivers and to train the people. And there might be people with military medical training that would fit right into a program like that.
Good observations, Tom. So the answer is really virtually any employer can make use of the bond. It's how we as job developers work with our veterans to use the bond as an incentive for getting that job offer, for getting that hire, for closing the deal, if you will. There really are no restrictions on industries or sectors or companies that could or can't use the bond.
And John, when we talk about military people, everybody has had training. I remember what my MOS was. You know, you've got training, you've got skills in a certain aspect of a company. So they're getting a trained employee already.
Yeah. Good point, Tom.
All right, everybody, it's looking like it's about 3 o'clock, and we want to just respect your time and let you get back to whatever else you were doing. Like we said, this webinar will be sent out to you with all the information that you were presented today and the information if you have further questions. So thank you for being with us, and hopefully you'll be on one of our next webinars.